The Love Life and Relationships of Emily Dickinson. Emily Dickinson, known for her famous poems that speak of life and love and longing, certainly qualifies as one of this world's most fascinating people. But what if I told you that Emily Dickinson not only never married, but it's possible that she never actually had a serious, in-person love relationship? That's not to say that she didn't have relationships. She had several. But many scholars believe those were probably more fantasy-type relationships, taking place through letters and shared poems with those she cared about deeply. The love life and relationships of Emily Dickinson have fascinated scholars for generations, as they delved into hints from her poetry and other writings to try to discover the extent of Emily's love life and the other important relationships in her life. Emily Dickinson was born in 1830 in Amherst, Massachusetts, in the United States. From a young age, she was an intelligent and curious child who enjoyed reading and writing poetry. As a teenager, she attended Amherst Academy and later Mount Holyoke Female Seminary. Those early years included several significant male friends, including Benjamin Newton, a law student in her father's office, Henry von Emmons, and Greg Gould, both fellow students with her brother at Amherst College. Some scholars believe that George Gould was a significant suitor, and he and Emily may have been engaged in the 1850s. But that marriage never came to fruition. One important relationship we know existed was with her schoolmate and later sister-in-law, Susan Huntington Gilbert. After marrying Emily's brother, Gilbert moved in next door and was a lifelong close friend of Emily's. Many scholars believe that Susan may have been Emily's muse, as Emily wrote over 300 letters to her and many poems. The fact that she wrote over 300 letters to the person who lived literally next door is another factor of Emily's life. Her tendency to pull inward, to resist the world, and interact with it through her writing, which took on an even greater role in her later life. In her 1859 poem, "One Sister Have I in Her House," Emily wrote, "One sister have I in our house, and one a hedge away. There's only one recorded, but both belong to me." A great example of Emily's long-distance relationships began in 1855, when Emily's family traveled to Washington, D.C. and Philadelphia. It was in Philadelphia where it is believed that Emily heard the impassioned preaching of the minister Charles Wadsworth to his congregation. Though Wadsworth was married, an attachment quickly developed which increased over time. We only know of the two meeting in person 2 times after that initial introduction. 5 years later in 1860, and 20 years after that in 1880. But Emily and Charles exchanged many letters over the years. She referred to him as my Philadelphia, my clergyman, my dearest earthly friend, and my shepherd from little girlhood. Charles Wadsworth, the minister, may have played a role in Emily's explosion of creativity in the late 1850s and early 1860s, when she produced new poems at a record rate. Many of those poems were highly passionate, sometimes despairing. It is clear that she was dealing with strong personal feelings during this time, many of which scholars believed were shared with Charles through letters that she wrote to him. Unfortunately, Emily's letters were destroyed, as per her wishes, shortly after her death. But we do have several drafts of letters addressed to Master, which many view as love letters. Some believe they were written to Wadsworth, though they may have been written to someone else. Wadsworth moved to San Francisco in 1862, which deeply affected Emily. She took to only wearing white around that time, possibly as a sign of mourning, which she would continue for the rest of her life. As Emily grew older, she became increasingly reclusive, withdrawing from social life and eventually living most of her life within the confines of her family's homestead. Most visitors went unacknowledged by her, and we have multiple stories of conversations that took place with those who were most persistent through her closed and locked bedroom door. Many believe this self-imposed isolation may have been due to her strong desire to focus on her writing, or possibly a result of her struggles with depression and anxiety. There was at least one other possible love relationship later in Emily's life, with her father's friend, Judge Otis Phillips Lord. Lord was a frequent guest in the Dickinson household. In 1877, his wife died. He was 65, and Emily was 47. But love bloomed. We have 15 drafts in Emily's handwriting of letters that she wrote to Judge Lord. Some of those letters suggest that they were contemplating marriage. It appears that the issue preventing the marriage was the question of her leaving her family to move into his home in Salem, Massachusetts. Those questions weren't resolved before he declined in health and died in 1884, 2 years before Emily. There is one more vital friendship in Emily's life that we haven't mentioned: her beloved dog, Carlo. Carlo was a curly-haired Newfoundland and was given to her in 1849 by her father, Edward Dickinson. She referred to him as her shaggy ally and mute confidant, and frequently referred to him in her letters, often with humor and always with love and respect. She even once playfully sent a lock of Carlo, her dog's hair, to a friend, claiming it was her own. Carlo died at age 17 in 1866 and was one of the possible reasons why Emily became even more reclusive. Emily Dickinson's life was one of great passion, but that passion was probably more a life of thoughts put into words than the experiences she longed for. Her 1862 poem, "I Cannot Live With You," illustrates that well. I cannot live with you, it would be life. And life is over there, behind the shelf. It's sad to imagine how difficult and lonely Emily's life may have been. But that life left us all a gift, some of the greatest poetry ever written.